Hello everyone, welcome to Wild Writing in the Time of Corona, and we're on day 109. And as I mentioned, the workshops aren't going to be every day now, so I'm doing this one and the next one will be in a couple of days' time when we will do something different. But for today, the focus is on a type of poem called a dramatic monologue, which is a poem with one speaker who addresses an audience in some way or a listener in some way. It often tells a story, and it's called dramatic in many ways, I think, because it's often the internalization of the speaker's thoughts, and it often actually has moments of drama in it, and that's what I wanted you to concentrate on today. So we're looking at actually four things today. We're looking at the dramatic monologue, which is the verse form, which is written in free verse. So there's no rhyming, and I think that's partly because the dramatic monologue seeks to capture the rhythms of the speaking voice, and often those rhythms don't naturally end up in rhyme. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to try and have some lines which don't stop at the end of the line. So, for example, when we're speaking as I'm speaking now, if you wrote down a transcription of what I was speaking, there would be lines and lines of it. And so a technique called enjambement has one line running into another, so the sentence doesn't stop at the end of the line. So that's something that I'd like you to try and do. And the last thing is to try and put a dramatic pause into the poem. So the dramatic pause is a technique which is called a caesura. A caesura, I think it comes from the word Caesar, which links to Caesarean, which is all to do with a kind of cut at a moment. So a caesura is a major pause in a line of poetry. And usually after that pause, there's a difference in perhaps tone or perhaps subject. So it's quite a dramatic moment. So we're going to try and write a dramatic monologue in free verse that has some enjambement and has a caesura in it. So that's four things. I think possibly, I think they work very well together in this form. So I'm going to help you to set this up. So in order to do this, I'd like you to select a character and flesh them out. So it can be somebody you know, it can be personal, it can be entirely fictitious, it can be a character that you like from a book or a film, it can be somebody you know, however you want to do this, but you need to know something about them. You also need to think about who they would be speaking to, because in a dramatic monologue, an audience is always implied. If you want to go to a classic of the genre, you'd go to somebody like Robert Browning and his poem My Last Duchess, where a duke is talking about his dead wife to an imagined visitor. So you don't need to write down who the audience is for, but you need to kind of imagine that it's being said to somebody. You then have to have the story. So the story or the event or the whatever it's going to be that the character is going to tell, which can be anything at all. It doesn't need to be majorly significant. It can be quite minor, but it has to have in it some moment of pause, some moment where you say something in the middle of a line, you come to a stop, you put a full stop, and then you move on from there. So it has the drama in it. Okay, you can obviously lead up to it in the drama in your language. You know, you can use all sorts of words which are going to anticipate that something's going to happen, or which are going to show a change from when something's happened. Okay. So you're aiming to get the speaking voice. And so that means that some of the thoughts will be quite short and some of them will be long. And so you won't necessarily get to the end of the line. You won't necessarily stop at the end of the line. I'll just give you a little illustration there of what stopping at the end of the line makes, the difference that makes. This poem is all about fluency, and it's all about hearing the spoken voice. So quite a lot to think about there today. A dramatic monologue in free verse with some enjambment, which is another name for it actually that I haven't said to you, is a run-on line, so where the line just runs on and into the next, and a dramatic pause. Okay, I'm going to not pause at that point, not because my pen has not run out, because my pen still hasn't run out and it's still writing these poems, but just to give you an illustration. So I chose to write something personal, and I chose to imagine that the audience was people who knew me. So I've called the poem Jim. It was September, sun and wind fighting together. I was in the garden, talking to the flowers, cajoling them to last a little longer. Through mellow insects humming, I heard the phone, went in, picked it up, and cheerily said, "Hello." Her words, so fragile and so final, hit me like lead. Something awful's happened. Long pause. Jim. Jim is dead. In gardening clothes, I rushed to her, to the hospital, to the room, to her, only her. She took me to him, stroked his hair as he lay with the life gone from him. A little dapper man, an orphan, alone as she was now bereft. We'd always kiss each other on both cheeks. It's a French thing. And so I asked, could I kiss him goodbye? Of course, she didn't even say. She nodded, completely numb and dumb. With more tenderness than I expected, I cupped my hand behind his greying hair and found the back of his neck, wanting to hold him in some way as I said goodbye. It was the strangest feeling. He was still warm. The nape of his neck was slow to let go of the heat that had made his big heart beat for all of his life. I'll look after her, I promised. And I have. That's a true story, and I think I made the dramatic moment just a moment of like a strange feeling on my part. I don't know if you noticed, and you might see that when I write this up, that I used the dramatic pause to lead straight into the enjambment, which had a lot more kind of rush to it at the end. With anticipation of you writing a wonderful dramatic monologue, I will say goodbye for a couple of days and look forward very much to your questions, to your comments, and to your contributions. I wish you well, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.